one man saying that is fine. If that's your opinion and you're not in it, that's fine. But there is an entire market of millions and millions of people that agree that it is a store of value. So, you can think one thing, but there's also a market, and markets tend to become efficient over time.
We do know that you will always get paid in Hex on a daily basis. And that is truly the miracle that we call Hex, because it is trustless interest, trustless yield. Nothing will stop that contract from running.
Here comes Peter Cottontail down the Bonnie Trail. Welcome in, everyone. I don't know what the hell is up with our intro. I just messaged you about that, but it's all jacked up. Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto. My name is Broke Boy Crypto. I have here with me, as always, my friend and co-host, Crypto Ewok. Welcome in. Tonight, we're talking about the stage being set, moves being made. Looking bullish. We have Ethereum moving on a chain in terms of PulseChain. We have some weird things that nobody knows what's going on with the token we're not allowed to talk about, and a lot of other stuff. We had some interesting insights, I don't really know what you would call them, from Jerome Powell and the Fed today, which was pretty interesting. We're going to get to that because it seems like he doesn't want to do what Daddy Trump tells him to do. Welcome in, everybody, in the chat. Digital Money Marcus, we got CD, Valiant Low Key, Johnny Chaos is here. I almost said Johnny Low Key, Hexakin Michelle, and Enoch. Are you Nookie Thompson from Boardwalk Empire? So welcome in if you are. But yeah, we got a lot to get to tonight. We got Bitcoin pulling back a little bit, Ethereum pulling back a little bit. PulseChain prices have been kind of holding steady around a level of support. So we're going to get into it. Kind of a lazy middle of April pre-Easter special here for you. So if you're maybe decorating some eggs or anything like that, maybe breaking out the Cadbury, whatever, do that here with us. Okay, Enoch, sorry about that. But you can celebrate your Easter here with us. Ewok, how are you feeling on this pre-Easter April day?
Feeling fine on this pre-Easter Wednesday, man. It's just, there's not a whole lot going on. It's kind of, there's things going on, but the markets are just kind of blah. I don't see a whole lot happening, especially in crypto. I feel like a lot of people have been kind of quiet on stream, or maybe I've just muted a lot of them. I don't know, one of the two. But just, it's just kind of blah. There's no real crazy price action in any of the core tokens that that we're following. There is some movement, some volatility, and in the ones that you were talking about there, but that's always just I feel like it just doesn't go anywhere. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, but there's no real terrible gains in it. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, I'm doing all right, man. Kind of been stepping away. I don't want to say stepping away from it, but just there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot to dive into and analyze, really.
Yeah, it really comes down to the same thing that we've been saying for weeks and months is, the rest of the market has to get going. And really by the rest of the market, we mainly mean Ethereum. But it doesn't mean there isn't things to be bullish about. It's just, it is still April, but, we've been saying it is just still X time, for a long time now. So we're waiting for things to turn around, and Ethereum just has not gotten to where it needs to go yet. And we'll get into this, but maybe, we also think in crypto, we have our finger on the pulse, get it, of the industry so much more frequently usually than people that are just investing in legacy, whatever, TradFi and stuff like that. So you're going to be having a lot worse of a time when things aren't moving because you're paying attention to it constantly. And it's just the amount of time invested doesn't really match the gains or lack thereof in the short term. So I think that's why people kind of suffer mentally a lot. That's just kind of the way it is. And we've talked about that. It's literally 3.5 years of nothing, maybe 6 months of pure pumpage. So let me get your thoughts on that. And then if we can just transition that right into Bitcoin and Ethereum. So,
and this kind of will play into that because I heard, I think it was Corey Geary this morning say something about, man, these last two cycles, if we would have just rotated everything after the cycle into Bitcoin, and rode that up for a year and a half and then pivoted out and then bought in, we would have been in so much better position. And, yeah, that's true. And it's so hard. Hindsight, hindsight's 2020. If we had known that, everybody would do it. Now in the next cycle, it may not play out that way. I mean, it may. And that was probably the best play, is to load everything in at that bottom, around 15K, ride it up to 100 and then pivot out. But again, looking back, that would have been the right thing to do, but you just never know. And unfortunately, maybe that's what people will do next cycle. So
yeah, and a couple of the couple cycles, it has been the right move to get into BTC versus stables and stuff like that. But you're right. I was thinking the same thing. Hindsight is 2020, and it's easy to look at old charts and like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do next time. Well, it may not do that the next time. Look at this bull market so far. So yeah, this is kind of how it goes. But yeah, if you want to pull up BTC, we're looking at about a little over 84K right now. It's been chilling out in this region, and it's gotten back up here after that dip down into the low 70s, which was an area like a lot of people were calling for it meeting again. But as long as on like the weekly super trend, if we weren't getting multiple weekly closes under like 72K, which we really haven't sniffed in terms of closes, we're good. I mean, we're still in this bullish uptrend. We talked last week about how Bob Lucas and some other notable people were like selling, and a lot of the big influencers and stuff are really trying to sell by May, but it's like, well, I don't know, you're not getting a lot of pumps up until then yet. So we got Bitcoin there. ETH is just under 1,600. It's been sitting around 1,600 all day. It dipped down a little bit with the stuff from Jerome Powell today, which we are going to get to, which really were just words. I mean, we'll see what it really means.
Yep.
But yeah, what do you make of where we're at in the cycle in terms of timing for Bitcoin? And then, as usual, we can do our Ethereum cope and how it's a piece of shit.
How it's looking like crap. Yeah, I mean, so this is the weekly chart on Bitcoin. We keep seeing 2 green weekly candles and then 2 red, and now we've got 2 green again. So I think a positive thing would be to keep an eye out for another continuation of another green weekly candle that hopefully can keep this trend line, just keeps pushing it down. It's the one we drew a few weeks ago to try and stay above, but now it's becoming more resistance than anything. But it doesn't look bad. It's not like it's terribly down. And here, let's go back to the daily. It's fighting it. So we need some moves in the main markets. It's obvious that there's a lot of uncertainty, especially here when you look at the Dow. Now, again, this is blown in pretty good, but when you zoom out, it's really not that bad. We were only down 1.7% today on the Dow, and there is some strength building here. You got a little pullback, but again, I'm not overly concerned, other than the fear porn that the news puts out about these tariffs. And I believe pretty much most everybody is coming to terms except China. And then you've got China doing backhanded deals, trying to say, well, hey, Europe, let us come through your country, and we'll and they're like, no, we don't want anything to do with that. So, it's going to take a little while to iron that out. But I think it will, as it always does. I don't see any, major concerns, just a little bit of uncertainty. Again, markets react to uncertainty. That's what we're seeing. So, over to Ethereum, still looks like dog crap. But the good thing is, if you're still feeling any kind of bullishness about it, it isn't a bad entry point for a lot of people that, back here when it was $4,000, just in December of last year. So, I mean, that's only been 4 months. We are that far off of the high. I know there's big institutions still stockpiling it. You got a lot of major players that are still buying it up. And I think we had talked about this before, was what they're doing is they buy big amounts when they buy OTC. And then when they decide to pivot out a little bit, they're hitting the market with it. So that's what's causing this artificial, what I think is an artificial price down. And these are fantastic places to try and get an entry if you're one of the lucky ones, probably, who are just coming into crypto or trying to get serious about it. Your timing probably couldn't be a whole lot better as far as getting some of these things that you may not have exposed yourself to before.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I mean, you're getting Ethereum right now, like you said, if you were getting into crypto right now, which, retail isn't really here, so that's not too many people, but the spare person here and there, you're getting Ethereum up like only a 2x off of its bear market lows right now, 3 years after the fact, almost 2.5 years after the fact. So yeah, it's pretty insane. That we would still be here at this time. We've talked about like ETH's potential this cycle, but being lower, and you not thinking that, me thinking at this point that the ratio's just gotten so bad that it may be more dependent on Bitcoin going over 200K to get to even decent numbers. I mean, you can see, there's a wide range of where people are at with the sentiment on ETH. Like our videos, the comments on like the ETH topping out at X, Y, or Z. There's people that'll be like, yeah, 5K, no way it gets above that, which I think that's like obviously the extreme bear where it's like, so you're telling me it, like, I definitely think it's horrible this cycle. It has been. I think it's going to be very lackluster, but to tell me that it won't even hit a new all-time high essentially is what you're saying with that. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say that. I still think like 8K is probably the bare minimum that we see, but I would be very happy with even getting to 10K at this point. I think 12K is probably an upper target, and anything above there I'd be ecstatic about. I think anybody holding altcoins would be happy Christ just to see it at 3,000 at this point. But I know you've pretty much maintained thinking 15 to 20K. I don't know when it's going to come, where, but if it does, I'll take it. So
it's a lot of retail. There's still a lot of retail that will come in. It's the cycle of it when everybody starts talking about it, and it makes a $2,000 jump in one day. You'll see how much little entries come in, not little, but from everywhere. Then once that happens, then the other retail starts pivoting out of things they may have been holding and trading into it. And it's just it's a very, it's the approach of the people making the wrong decisions at the wrong time, where they should be buying in now and hanging on instead of saying, oh crap, this is moving, now I got to jump on that bandwagon. So it's that's how the markets run.
That, and I think postcards. I think that's the other element.
Postcards
is once Vitalik, once he gets into the print shop and starts, filing off a bunch of those postcards, I think we'll be fine. But that's just kind of where we're at with Ethereum. But yeah, I'm with you. As far as BTC, I think it's really right on target, right on schedule, and everything. The people, with how much FUD and stuff that we have seen over the last few years, the people that have been worried in terms of Bitcoin recently is just laughable. I think the setup is perfectly fine. And when you look, it's all big time day traders. Like it's people like, and Ched's trading is, I think he's an okay guy and stuff like that, but like he's a day trader. A lot of these gigantic accounts, like that is what they do. So they're honed in on this very, very short-term time frame. And I also think just generally, like I heard Sami mention this the other day, and I've thought about this idea for a long time. People that sound really smart and have all these ideas and want to look like they're a step ahead of everybody else are like perma bears. Usually it's always like bearish sentiment because they want to be the one guy in the room that knows the secret. It's kind of like what that crypto capo guy turned into, that has become basically a laughing stock, that used to have a public Twitter and gave out, whatever trade signals that he did, but now he's just got a closed Telegram where he's bearish all the time. He was bearish at the low of Bitcoin in the bear market and was bearish the whole move up to 40K. So I don't know. There's just, I think there is that thing where people that want to look like the smart guy, want to look like the smartest guy in the room, tend to have negative opinions about things to stand out, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm measuring this out. This was back in 2019. Obviously we had that low in 18, it ran up to about 14,000, and then it kind of cooled off, and it cooled off for about almost 500 days before it really decided to take off. So, I mean, if we look at it now from the bottom, I mean, if you were measuring anything like that from, well, I mean, where do you start the cool off period, right? I mean, so you measure from where we're at now, even if you went back 500 days, you're still in December of 23. So, I mean, depending on where this cool off period starts and ends, it is really kind of telling. I mean, I would think this right here at 70 something would have been like a cool off period. And you're looking almost, here is 400, and let's just say 500, even doesn't till August. So can people really wait that long, or do they get shaken out again? You know, but it's possible if you're looking at like a cool off period before it really makes a run, like it did back here in 19 or 20, 21, before it made that double top anyway. It cooled off for a long time. So there is a possibility that it doesn't do just a whole lot of craziness until August. So something to think about. And, just looking at the cycle from last time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like fall, third, fourth quarter is really what people have been geared up for this entire time. I guess it's just that by this time, many people were hoping like there'd be more of an indication. And maybe there has on Bitcoin. Like we saw scorching new all-time highs during the election last year in 2024. It still isn't May though, and May has historically been like a pretty gigantic month in terms of crypto. Let me ask you this, just not totally pivoting, but I saw the other day. So one of the popular charts, so people used to just talk about Bitcoin dominance, and I mean, they still do, but there's also I think TradingView has it. It's called Others BTC, which is basically all altcoins outside the altcoin index outside of the top 10 and not including stable coins. So like all the like biggest alts aren't included, but like it's basically the altcoin index. But the Others versus Ethereum chart has actually been going up, which is quite interesting because that's indicating that, and this will ring true here in PulseChain, as you've seen, Ewok and viewers too. Like we've been moving up as Ethereum's actually been going down. Like the Pulse, of course, had its crazy lowish stuff a couple of weeks ago, but now that Ethereum came crashing down lower in light of the tariff narrative news and stuff like that, Pulse has actually moved up on it. So not even just Pulse, but again, others like the altcoin index moving up slightly on Ethereum. And like, I just wonder how much there is to that. Like, do you see a world where altcoins could run any significant way without Ethereum doing really well? Because I mean, we've talked about it, how dependent our ecosystem will be on Ethereum pumping, not just because of maybe an interested party in buying the tokens has a lot of Ethereum, but also just because they're liquidity bonded and altcoins usually need Ethereum to run well. That goes for Polkadot, Chainlink, whatever the hell else. But yeah, what do you make of that? I mean, the fact that the altcoin index is moving up against Ethereum, like, are we getting into a whole situation where Ethereum isn't needed as much for these things to pump? We've seen Solana do so well. I don't know. I don't know if it's a new paradigm or not.
Well, that was meme season. I mean, so this is that Others. This is basically crypto total market cap excluding the top 10. So it gets rid of all your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, all your stables, and that. I mean, and this is clearly on a downtrend. However, against ETH, I believe that's what you were saying, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. This is the chart of that. So, yeah, I mean, people, I think at this point are more into speculating on these at that point. I don't know that they're gonna start putting a whole lot in Ethereum when they're like, well, screw it. If we're gonna miss Ethereum, we're just gonna go straight for the altcoins. So I think that is truly what you're seeing here, instead of just playing the game of, all right, start with Bitcoin, rotate over to Ethereum, then rotate into altcoins.
Right.
I think people are changing up that strategy a little bit, and that's what you're seeing here. But I most of the time, 80% of the people make the wrong decision. So,
yeah,
that's just how it goes. The majority is usually not on the right side of winning trades, and that's why most people lose money in this. So, I don't know. I mean, this is what it looks like to me, is that people are just kind of bypassing Ethereum. There's no excitement. There's not a whole lot. Last cycle, there was all the DeFi stuff that came out, and Ethereum just got so crazy busy, and maybe people are gun shy of those fees. I think they've fixed it a little bit. We'll have to see what happens if it does get crazy busy. But, $50, $100 to send, like, if I wanted to send you some Ethereum and it was costing me $50 to $75 to just send it, that's ridiculous. So I think people may be a little gun shy. And it's kind of playing out where they're like, well, we'll just go right into altcoins. We'll skip that whole process. But again, I think people are going to be upset when they do see ETH start to run. How unusable will it be? How will that play out for PulseChain, saying, hey, we still have a pretty cheap chain over here too. Although, the fees haven't been the greatest on PulseChain either. I think we need a few updates as well. We'll probably get to that a little bit too.
Yeah, I do think it's fascinating though, like you said. I mean, yeah, just that we are seeing the altcoins move against Ethereum here, and it could be what you said. I mean, it could be like Ethereum is third cycle at this point. So I mean, it's now entering a status where certainly your average person may not have heard of it. That's why we got to get those postcards out. But in terms of, maybe millennials or people that are online or under the age of 50 or something like that, you've obviously heard of Bitcoin, and you maybe now likely have heard of Ethereum. So, and you're hearing about the crazy gains that you can make, and you could be right. I mean, maybe they are just bypassing it because, just like Bitcoin, I mean, you get to unit bias. Like, people aren't going to spend $85,000 to buy one Bitcoin. They probably don't want to spend $1,500 even to buy one Ethereum. They want to buy, how about 1 billion PulseX tokens or something like that. So, yeah. But I do find it fascinating.
That number is definitely a strong suit. It's kind of intimidating. I'm just going to buy one Ethereum.
Yeah,
so
big deal. Yeah, but it is interesting. The altcoin index is moving. So we shall see how things continue on with that. Hopefully, Ethereum does pump. Maybe by like 2035 or something like that when we're a little bit older. But anyway, let's move on to the PulseChain ecosystem. If you guys are enjoying the stream so far, do us a favor, hit the like button. We appreciate all of you being here. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, Pulse looking good, moving up here a little bit again today. It has really been showing some nice strength, and Ewok and I were talking about it personally the other day. We've seen Pulse moving up well against Ethereum now. It's gotten out of its kind of little goblin zone when it was at an all-time low of 4016. We've saw it wick down to. I mean, it was just disgusting a couple of weekends ago, but we have floated up to this level that we had dumped down to, in terms of Pulse anyway, back on the initial Maria, Rael, Van Argen, Blargen selling of Atropa and all that one day. This was the area that we wicked down to right about now, and we're coming up over it, and maybe we can turn this level back into support, which would be very nice for Pulse. It's at 4 zeros and a 2.6 right now. We have PulseX, which is very strong, of course, at 4 zeros and a 2. Inc is out $1.13. We have Hex just at 6 cents. It's been pretty volatile, Hex has, over the last not 6 cents, you know what I mean? 006, I would take 6 cents. The 6th cents, I see dead people. And EHEX at what? 0015. I always have to open another app to see that.
Yep,
so.
1.5.
Or yeah.
It's 1 to 3.9 ratio right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, we are moving up, and just kind of looking throughout the rest of the ecosystem, there are some other tokens kind of moving up here as well, too. So, getting a little bit bullish here tonight. But, yeah, what do you make? We can look at the Pulse chart. And I really like this move and the strength that it has been showing again now that Ethereum has looked so goddamn weak off of that tariff news from last week. So, obviously, the chart not looking great. But overall, what do you think about us at least getting back up to this level?
Well, it actually is looking great, because this is the first time we had 2 back-to-back weekly candles since November of last year.
Good call.
So there is, definitely some strength showing. I think that bottom definitely woke some people up and said, "Whoa," or somebody had to decide to protect it. Something is going on. But again, since December, this is the first 2. I'm sorry, weekly candles back to back, not monthly. I don't know if I said that the first time or not, but yeah, we haven't had back-to-back weekly candles since December, early December of last year. November into December, we had a nice little run up here. So hopefully this little trend continues and we can get up out of these doldrums. I do believe that we will probably, this same bottom that we kind of cut through on the way down could turn into a trade opportunity, maybe a little resistance. Wouldn't be bad for a whale or so to step in at that point and kind of send it beyond. Otherwise, it's just I think it could just chop for a while into that level if we can get through it and move on. I think a lot of the big sellers have washed out, and it's a good thing. I mean, I definitely feel it's a good thing to get some of those players out that have lost complete faith. So,
and
yeah,
we know, I think, I mean, kind of confirmed by wallet watchers that at least one of them that's pretty well known, I think, sold at least half of his stack at this point at these levels, right?
Yep, I do believe so. I know Bank X. I mean, I know this is the other system over in Ethereum, but I think Bank X was making moves too. They're just kind of played out. So I mean, it's happening. It's happening across the boards for both Hex on Ethereum and for the whole PulseChain ecosystem. I think you had to wash them out. You had to. There was just so many people that had a lot of invested interest and maybe not a whole lot of belief. So, yeah.
Well, I know you messaged me over the weekend that you really felt like the bottom was in, and well, I don't want to say everything you told me. You can say whatever you want to say on the stream, but
Sure.
that you felt the bottom was in, made some moves and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering what specifically triggered that thought to you. I mean, because it has looked very strong.
Well, it was that second weekly candle confirmation is really what I did it for me. I think I had mentioned it on stream that I had some money sitting in some stable pool on PulseX, and I pulled 80% of it out and went in at some of these lower levels. Now I didn't catch the exact bottom.
Right.
However, I saw the confirmation that I kind of felt like that was the good enough for me kind of back-to-back weekly candles. We're starting on our third one. Not overly caring about catching the exact bottom. I think anybody that gets in under half of SAC value in the long run is going to be quite happy. It's just every time, below that you get in at 0.0002, every doubling is 0.004. If you wait to get into 5, then you got to wait till SAC rate to double. So, it's incrementally harder to double the longer you wait. So, yeah, that was my confirmation. And again, I wasn't too concerned about the 0.0001 or the 0.0002 something, close enough for me. But yeah, I decided to extract out of the stable pool and inject it. So
probably a good time to do it. Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's been so hard for me. Like anytime I have cash flowing in, I just need to get it into the ecosystem. And that like for me, I guess like it's tough in bull conditions, even though like Pulse has been down. It's tough in bull conditions for me to let stuff sit in stables. It's just, plus I think it's also another form of DCA where it's like, okay, well, there's the chart. You have it up right now. I know I DCA'd here. And as you just said, you can't guarantee hitting the exact bottom. So it's just like one of these times when I buy, no matter what, is going to be my lowest cost basis. So, We talked, I think it was last week. I mean, basically for these 2 years nearly that Pulse has been launched. I mean, we're like under 4 weeks away from a 2-year anniversary.
Yeah.
This whole entire period, I'm hoping and thinking, as we've mentioned, that we'll look back on this whole channel for 2 years as just the area to DCA. You know,
Sure.
I mean, obviously you'd rather not get it at 3x, 2x sack rate where it was like in June or whatever of 2023. You'd rather get it right now. But this whole time, it's like if you were somebody that was just DCAing hardcore into these along the way, in 6 to 12 months from now, you're feeling pretty good, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, like you said, for people that were just going in every paycheck or whatever, I feel to get more bang for the buck, you kind of got to let it. I was earning yield too. Like I said, in the stable pool, you know, you're earning yield. So it's not just sitting there hoping, you know, you are earning it. It's a nice little percentage. It's not a whole lot, but I was kind of waiting for that moment because I did go in extremely heavy at sacrifice, and not a whole lot along the way. I put some in here and there, but I know you did a little differently than I did, and you know, we'll turn around
and
and
sacrifice nearly as much. Yeah. So I was kind of more having to DCA, wanting to DCA more. Yeah.
But then again, I made out extremely well on the sacrifice because of the value of the tokens that I sacrificed. So you've got to remember all of that stuff was many X's from what it is currently. And we got to, you know, extract that value at that time. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm hoping we do look back at these times as the calm before the storm that lasted 2 years and wasn't very calm. So
I mean, yeah, you're talking 20-30 cent hex whenever those sacrifices happen. So
yep. Yeah, you're right. So it would have been June, July of 21, and then basically December. January of 22 for PulseX. Yeah. Yep. Pretty insane to think of. Pretty insane indeed how far we've come. So, yeah, that's where we are with the Pulse ecosystem. So hit us up in the chat. Let us know the thoughts that you guys have. We're going to get to some of the topics that people are talking about. Let's real quick just touch on this Jerome Powell thing for today, and then we'll move on from macro, because while it wasn't like an official FOMC meeting or something like that, regardless actually of what the Fed does at some of those meetings in terms of cutting, hiking rates, or standing pat, they really react to what did Powell say. So he was interviewed today, and there's like a good 1.5-minute clip out there that I sent you that we don't, if you want, we can play and listen to. But basically, this guy is just got a hard on for Trump right now. I mean, he's not going to bend the knee. I mean, Trump has put the pressure on him and literally called him out to cut interest rates. There you go. Yeah, if you want to play it, go ahead.
Can you
I heard it. Yep.
Volatility.
We got a major echo, so there's something. Yeah.
Hang on. Let me I know what's going on.
Actually, stock market volatility. I mean, the levels of the VIX are up to the levels they were in the early days of the pandemic, coming off somewhat now. Some people believe the Fed will intervene if the stock market plummets, the so-called Fed put. Are they correct?
So he laughs.
I'm going to say no with an explanation. So
sell.
What I think is going on in markets is markets are processing what's going on, and you know it's really the policies, particularly the trade policy, and really the question is, where's that going to come in? Where's that going to land? And we don't know that yet. And until we know that, you can't really make informed assessments that would still be highly uncertain. Once you know what the policies are, it'll still be highly uncertain what the economic effects will be. So markets are struggling with a lot of uncertainty, and that means volatility. But having said that, markets are functioning, you know, conditional on being in such a challenging situation. Markets are doing what they're supposed to do. They're orderly, and they're functioning just about as you would expect them to function.
Literally scoffs and laughs at the question of will they do anything basically to help out the stock market, and like he's intimating like cutting interest rates, I believe, but then says no with an exclamation point. So I don't know, maybe Powell was taking the question differently, but I mean the market interpreted it as it being the market has chosen the idea that Powell is saying he's not going to cut interest rates. So
Well,
what do you make of it? Yeah, go ahead.
well, so I think I mentioned this to you earlier. Somebody had said that he said no with an exclamation point, but I think what he said is no with an explanation, not an exclamation.
With an explanation point.
He didn't even say point.
He didn't say point?
No, he just said no with an explanation. Somebody made it sound like he said no with an exclamation point.
And
that's not what he said.
That's how I took it, because I read that and I even heard it right there, because I guess I was choosing to hear
some volatility, especially stock market volatility. I mean, the levels of the VIX are up to the levels they were in the early days of the pandemic, coming off somewhat now. Some people believe the Fed will intervene if the stock market plummets, the so-called Fed put. Are they correct?
I'm going to say no with an explanation.
Wow, yeah, you're right. That person totally made that up.
It wasn't exclamation point. So it wasn't like I'm driving home, I'm going to tell you no with an exclamation point. So that's what I said to you earlier, and I didn't think you understood what I was saying.
I didn't understand. Now that's kind of how messaging goes, I guess. But yeah, now I get what you're saying.
With an explanation, and he does make an okay point with that, because you don't want to react too quickly. Even in our intro, I kind of made fun that markets tend to become efficient over time. And because, that's something that you had said one time, and it's true. You kind of want to let the markets play out on their own before you go intervening too quickly. And I get that point. At the same time, these guys are always in favor of helping one administration and not the other when times may kind of need it a little bit, need a little boost. What's 0.25, right? I mean, just do it, give it a little kickstart, see what happens. I don't think it's a bad thing. So, that's where you and I kind of agree. And we don't disagree on any of this, but we don't disagree heavily. On anything. Well, no, not yet, not tonight yet. Anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think we need to definitely see how things play out on their own. Let's see what happens with the tariffs once, it's going to take a little bit of time, like I said. And once it does, I think it'll be just fine. They'll resume what we say. When's the next one? That's in May. Yeah. The next FOMC is May 7th, I believe. So it's not far off.
It's not far off. I believe the odds are relatively the same. Like the market believes that they'll stand pat at that meeting, but likely, barely, but likely cut at the June meeting, which, I mean, I guess that timeline would make sense because it would be more time for, this all to digest a little bit. Like, I mean, we have to remember, like, when these big things happen, like the Trump tariffs and stuff like that, the market's kind of digestion of everything and moving on and talking about a whole other topic the very following week. I mean, these things move pretty quickly. Like people have their outrage, for a couple of days, and then every podcast and every interview and every goddamn thing is all, about the Trump tariffs and everything and how it's going to be the end of the world. And then 2 weeks later, there's a totally different topic. So that's the market, though. The emotions are the market, and markets tend to become efficient over time. Yes, so, yeah. But yeah, I don't know what my point really was there. I was just kind of saying bullshit. But I want to ask you that, we kind of mentioned this, but I mean, Powell did start pivoting and cutting interest rates under Biden, but has not done it yet under Trump. So yeah, I think he's, clearly going up against the guy. And
did they not lower at the last meeting in April? I feel like
we're in April.
And what was the last one?
No, March? I don't think they've cut this year yet. I don't really remember.
I feel like they did. I feel like they cut once. And the market definitely reacted, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just dreaming. And
no, the March one, they held interest rates where they were. They did not cut.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think particularly why there's such outrage about it now. Yeah, the FOMC expects 2 rate cuts this year, with the median projection for the federal funds target range finishing 2025 at 5.1. Yeah, so no, they have not. They did not cut at the last meeting, but and I think it's the other thing is now, with Trump and what he's like done to the economy and stuff like that, their tune might change a little bit, because it's not like we didn't have these tariffs in place last time. We didn't have these deals going on and stuff like that. And, Powell has growing animosity against Trump, especially because Trump is personally calling him out and stuff like that, to where he doesn't want to bend. So we'll see. I mean, at some point, what's going to win out is what needs to be done. Eventually enough pressure will be on the guy that he has to do it. So, we'll get there eventually. And it'll be whenever Trump isn't making as big of a deal out of it. And another interesting point too, they always will dress these things up as something. They won't call it quantitative easing or anything. They'll get like some kind of new framework that we want to make it clear. This is not quantitative easing. This isn't any kind of a bailout or anything like that, and it's really just the same exact thing.
That's exactly what it's exactly what it is. So,
yeah. All right. Well, we will see what Powell and the Fed does. Yeah, there is an FOMC meeting in May and in June, so we'll follow along with that stuff, as boring as it may be. Let's get into some RH stuff the last couple of days. So Richard has tweeted about a couple of things. One I thought was interesting is he posts about a new roadmap, which I thought was something you didn't want to be doing that in past administrations with the SEC, of providing a roadmap, as maybe you have a security, but now we know that pretty much nothing in crypto is a security anymore, because we have precedent setting, and nobody gives a shit about that anymore, and we've moved on. So that's awesome. But Vitalik shared a roadmap, and Richard commented on it a little bit. I think he's excited to see Vitalik doing really anything. And I think Richard felt like the ship may have sailed on. I think Richard honestly does feel like the ship has sailed on Ethereum being insanely great this cycle, just based on his sentiment, because he's tried to call them out and all these other things. But Richard didn't really provide a lot of context here. Obviously, he just said he's working on Ethereum. So what do you make of this roadmap here? It looks like they're talking privacy pools. And remember, a lot of this too could be things that are coming to PulseChain as well, which is another reason that RH might be posting about it. But what do you make just in general of him posting about this, and what some of the details of the roadmap are, Ewok?
Well, yeah. So the big thing that I've heard recently that is interesting is the fact that Ethereum has taken several updates, and I don't believe PulseChain has taken any of them on yet, any of the bigger ones anyway, which is, I don't want to say concerning. Maybe they're waiting to see if bugs happen. They don't want, I mean, obviously, he mentions that PulseChain or Ethereum is our test net. We get to see if things break with Ethereum before we can, pivot over and use those updates. However, I think there's been a few that have been working just fine, and we haven't taken any of them on yet. Does that mean we get several at once? I don't know. I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do several big updates where you do run the risk of something breaking. But either way, one of them is the Railgun, which for those who don't know what Railgun is, it's a very similar privacy tool, like a Tornado kind of cash.
Right.
It creates more privacy when sending in and out of wallets. So it shields the balances. It shields, you can see a transaction, but there's not a whole lot else that you can see where it came from, where it went afterwards. So there's that. There is I'm not sure what this move the ecosystem toward one address per application means, but I can read it if you'd like.
You don't have to read the whole thing.
Right.
Wait, which one was it?
The second one.
Here, I'll try to speed through it. This is a major step, and it entails significant convenience sacrifices, but in my opinion, this is a bullet. That word scares me. That's why I couldn't read it. As a bullet that we should bite. I know he's talking about bullets. Vitalik getting violent here. That's a better view, because this is the most practical way to remove public links between all of your activity across different applications. Moving forward with such a design also works very naturally within application wallets and new workflows. Okay, no, there's that one. Anyway, yeah, make send to self privacy by default. Implement focal, fecal,
focal.
Yeah. Don't get it, but it has to do with tornado type stuff and railway too. It looks like.
Yeah, Tornado operate without needing relays and public broadcasters. There's a lot of privacy, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the word privacy on a lot of these, and it's a good thing. You know, I think these chains definitely need privacy factors that we don't have. Interestingly enough, KG was on a stream earlier talking about Internet Money Wallet. And I asked them, you know, are you planning on putting any of the ZK, the zero knowledge privacy things in? And he says, you know, it's become one of the more popular requests. So very cool. If we can start getting some of that on PulseChain. But yes, you know, you have to take these updates and put them into place. I mean, again, could be just waiting for the right time. I mean, a lot of these things could be a timing issue or a time. Just sometimes it's not always best to just do it right away. Wait for the timing to happen. You know, we've always said, well, when's single-sided staking coming? People forgot all about that. You know, not important. I don't think it helped the price at all. So it would have just given more ammo to people to dump. So again, I do believe a lot of this is timing. He's talking about it for a reason. He's working on it, and maybe that means that these guys will be slowly integrating some of these onto PulseChain, which we'd love to see.
I want to just read his kind of TLDR down there at the bottom. He says, at the end of this, we will have a world where a large portion of sends are private and private sends are default in many cases. Activity inside of each individual application is public, but the link between your activity in application A and your activity in application B is private. Privacy guarantees hold not just against adversaries passively observing the chain, but also adversaries operating RPC nodes. So you're right. I mean, it's literally all privacy stuff. So really cool that this is coming to Ethereum. Richard, of course, I think is concerned, you know, really paramount. I mean, from his messaging from the beginning of time has been about privacy. I mean, I think that's the main ethos behind a lot of the stuff that he does. And what he's kind of fought for and won literally in court already on. So, yeah, I think this is awesome. And I'm sure he's glad to see something coming from Vitalik that seems, you know, productive, and it's not like his face in a you know, prostitute's ass at a trade show or something like that. So
or debating if somebody's pregnant online and taking a bunch of heat for it.
Yeah, whatever non-crypto stuff is out there with him. Do you have any kind of final thoughts on that? If not, we can move to the wallet tweet that we also saw.
Yeah, let's go to one of them. I think he had three of those.
A couple. I think there was one or two maybe within the same thread. But yeah, Monday. So it's been speculated, really not even speculated, I think, because really going back, and you can probably refresh me on this, Ewok, I think Richard actually has pretty much stated about making a wallet before. It's not just been a speculated thing by us. But yeah, he tweeted about it on Monday. And we'll look at that tweet first, and he straight up asks the people, and this is what is awesome about him and about this chain, I think, is he asks what people want. What features do you wish wallets had? He said, off the top of my head, Excel export everything, batch sending, sorting by balance, finding which account last interacted with a DApp, actually using desktop space instead of just showing mobile size on desktop, bridging, swapping. What else? And then we get a bunch of replies that any that seem useful we can go through. But first, just before we even do that, and what a Richard Hart wallet could look like, and I'll even say this, whether it's needed, because that's something that KG and everybody were talking about on the St. Wolf stream earlier, like, you know, do we need this? Or what if everybody rallied around internet money? Or what if they rallied around Rabby? No, just kidding. But it is Easter. But first off, do you think, go ahead.
Well, before we get into that, I want to play something that I had found for you, and share this and play this just real quick. It shouldn't.
I remember this meetup actually, not being there, but
we've also got a wallet, a Hex wallet that's done. I haven't had time to release it. You know, there's a lot of really cool stuff kind of going on in the ecosystem.
Did you hear that?
I did hear it, and now that you mention it, I've seen that before, and I forgot about it.
Done. He said it was done. Just haven't had time to release it. So, there's that.
More importantly, where can I get that jacket he's wearing?
Right. Louis Vuitton. For sure.
No, I think I'm good. But
You're good?
yeah. Now that you play that though, yeah, I do remember that. So I'll ask you that. I mean, like, do you think it is really done? I guess there's lots of phases of things that could or could not be done when it comes to software. Like KG made a great point on that earlier. He's like, there's a reason we're on Windows 11. It's because Windows 1 wasn't perfect, and there's always things that need updated. But how serious is he? Is it what do you think a timeline for something like this would be? And something that people have asked many times is, would this be another sacrifice opportunity? Would he do something like that? And if so, would people participate? So whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, first of all, I don't believe it'd be a sacrifice. I think he would want the people to have the security features that without it, you have to put a token on it if you want a sacrifice. I mean, what else are you just going to pay to have nothing? Like, people wouldn't participate. So you'd have to duct tape a token on somehow, some way in order to do that. Then you end up with another dump. I feel like we've already battled through that, and I don't think this would be the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That is the second video that I remember seeing. He mentioned Wallet Guy being done in another video too. It was a stream, whether it was an interview on one of the conferences or what it was, but he mentioned it being done too. I have a feeling it could be released. I think these like plugs are final. Like, all right, is there anything else that maybe somebody's going to throw a good idea that we completely just looked over, forgot about, wanted to include and didn't? And if there's enough interaction for people to say, wow, they really want this thing, we probably should add that, right? So I have a feeling this is like a last ditch saying, hey, I've got this, it's done, it's been done. And what happens after next Monday could be fair game. It's just depending on how things play out in the court decision. Don't forget, we've only got 4 or 5 days left till we hear that. So I think it's just preparation, final preparation, and I think we could see something. I feel bad in a sense because KG and those guys have put a lot of time into it, and people will definitely, because it's Richard's wallet, probably use it. Not necessarily a bad thing, but again, I wish they could kind of integrate the things they've done together to work as a team instead of, making people draw a line, right?
Let me ask you this. How much of this, and I think you brought up a lot of good points there as far as like, yeah, he probably is far down the line with this. And it's like, what, maybe somebody will say something I haven't thought of, but what about the timing with the whole thing that happened with Rabby with this? Obviously we can see that at least for probably a few years now, he's had the idea of a wallet that maybe has been done since 2021. Yeah. But the Rabby thing just happening where, they had a custom RPC for PulseChain. They removed it. That's what happened. It's not like the end of the world. But, people aren't going to use Rabby anymore because of it, and they're going to give them bad reviews. Do you think, obviously, it's not like he saw this and said, you know what, I think I'm going to create a wallet, because we just showed a video from 4 years ago or whatever where he's talking about it. But in terms of him posting this now and farming these ideas, do you think any of it could be linked just to the timing of what happened with Rabby? Not because he thinks Rabby is significant, but because the community is pissed at Rabby because they were using it and they kind of turned their backs on them. So,
yeah, and I think if he can integrate some sort of additional buy and burn pressure, some additional, lessening of the inflation in any way. He's been about that a lot. You look at Pumped Up Tires, you look at PulseX, you look at some of these new protocols that are just burning tokens, right? We're getting rid of inflation. It's definitely helping the ecosystem in one way or another. And I think if he can incorporate another way to do that, he's going to be all for it. And yeah, I do believe it's a lot of timing because of what just happened with Rabby and their decision. Now, maybe I had seen somebody else mention that maybe they got wind that he was doing this too, and that's why they delisted it, which just that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me anyway.
No,
but
I don't think.
I think they would still try and capture as much market share as they possibly could without just going and kind of blasting themselves and not getting, all these bad 1-star ratings. So yeah, I think there's definitely a timing aspect of him saying, well, it's probably a good time. This is people need it. They want it. We do have other options, however, but I think he's probably looking at the timing and saying this could work out really well. So
you mentioned potentially some interesting ideas from the comments or just other angles of it. Is there any that you kind of wanted to highlight at all? I see we see Stoic.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would love to see some sort of because I love Coast. I love the Coast guys. I love what they do. If they could integrate some sort of tie with Old Glory maybe into the wallet. I mean, I don't know, that would be pretty cool. I know Internet Money has an option where you can buy straight from credit card on the IM wallet. But the biggest thing is the privacy. I mean, you've got a lot of privacy.
I like Brizz's recommendation.
Yeah, I want to be able to change the background to big titty anime girls. So there we go, Brizzology. That's a notable suggestion for you.
Yep.
I'm
making stuff. It's Hexo. Yeah.
Of course. And then you get these people that pop up and say, hey, we're working on a better solution. Well, again, if there were more collaboration and I think trust, you could give the responsibilities to multiple groups of people. The problem that you have though is how do you trust everybody? You can't. Unfortunately, it's just I don't know how feasible it really is.
And track record wise, I mean, trusting somebody that you don't really know in crypto, what I mean?
Does not work out well. It just doesn't. So
no, it does not. And honestly, that's for as much as people shit on MetaMask, I think that's why a lot of people have hesitance to even ditch MetaMask because it's like old, reliable, as shitty as it can be. Like I remember even Maddie on a stream a couple weeks back. This is before Rabby ditched us. A lot of people were like, "Hey, Rabby's really cool," and it was right around the time that you had made the transition, so to speak, to Rabby. And Maddie was defiant, like, "No, I don't like it." Is it like you could just tell he just didn't want to? And I get it, security wise, even though MetaMask isn't optimal, it's like this is what I know. You know what I mean? So I get
it's definitely a hard thing. It's a hard thing to trust because we pound that into people's heads that your seed phrase is your life. It's your lifeblood, so to speak, and entering those words into anything, other than what you're using is an added risk that you just may not need to do. So I get it. I mean, it is a tough thing, but yeah, I mean, there are some good ideas in here. Like I said, a lot of it is the privacy. A lot of it is the like a toggle. I forget who said it. A toggle to turn a privacy mixer on. So if you really wanted to kind of use like a Tornado Cash, have a little toggle that you could send and turn that on. Now it's going to take longer to go in and mix before it gets to where it needs to be. But yeah, I mean, there's some good ideas. The revoke.cash option for, right in the wallet is a great choice. You want to be able to approve a thing and then revoke it right away afterwards. Another step with, just added security and things that you may not use that often and be able to revoke their permissions right away. I'm sure he's thought a lot of this stuff.
That might be a good call out too, to just say like, I don't know if you do this Ewok, but like, and it depends on the platform and it depends on the token and stuff. Like I've noticed Pateus, I don't know if this is the wallet's fault or the dApp's fault. I think it's I don't know, maybe the wallet, but when you go to make a trade, and let's say it's a token you haven't traded before, and it'll ask you for like permission
to
yeah,
send.
right.
Yeah.
And many of it will default to unlimited,
Yes.
which is not good. And you
No.
should not do that. And it's hard to get. I mean, in my early crypto days, there's no fucking way I would have caught that. I would have just been like, yep, okay, whatever. I'm trying to make this trade, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful, especially on MetaMask. Like if you're not used to looking at these things, like it's hidden there in like 3 lines of different text, and it'll say like approve unlimited amount of PulseX or whatever it may be.
Right.
And you just told that application, you know, not that they have malicious intent necessarily or anything like that, but you just told whatever application it is, yes, my
spend it all.
500 million PulseX or whatever, yes, you have unlimited access to it. That's when you would go to revoke.cash and make sure you revoke that permission, which is that, as a side note, that is a great practice for people to do maybe every couple of months or whatever. It depends on, you know, how much you are making trades, how much you know what your actions are, but make sure when you go to trade a token that if it's 500 Atropa or whatever it is that you're selling out of, put the number that you are selling from in there and no more than that, because
I mean, you could always go a few over if you have to.
Or that, to be careful,
to be safe. That way you don't get a stuck transaction or whatever it may be. I would always stick with an even number. A lot of problems come whenever people are putting the decimal places in and all that good stuff too. You know, you want it to be an even number.
Just don't do unlimited. I think that's the key.
Right. Now, you know, obviously back in the day when Ethereum fees were crazy, and it was costing that transaction fee every time to approve, that got pretty expensive. You know, if you had to approve a certain amount each time, it was a double transaction because you had to approve the spend and that cost, and then you had to approve the actual transaction after that. So it was a double whammy, and people were trying to get around it, but the scammers took advantage of that, knowing that a lot of people had unlimited spend and they could get in, and as long as it was approved, if they could finagle their way in to get an approved transaction, they could make you approve something you didn't want to, and it was gone. So
really bad. You have to be really careful of that. And again, when you're on PulseChain and it costs, you know, a dime to swap or $1 like it did earlier today, it's much more easy to say, all right, if I have to go in here and every time and enable a spending cap, then I'll do it because it's not costing me very much. So Anywho, that is Richard Hart Wallace stuff. We'll see what does come of that, but exciting times for sure. I want to move a little quickly because there's like 2 more big things I kind of want to get to. Lastly, with RH stuff, or rumored to be RH, we don't know that it's him at all, actually. We did see some Ethereum moving around on the blockchain the other day from an address affiliated with a PulseChain sacrifice wallet, and it was 4,200 ETH, which at the moment is probably what, $6 or $7 million, I think, or so.
Something like that.
Yeah, so right around that amount. It looked like it moved it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it moved it to Tornado Cash, which is, of course, that privacy mixer, which we've talked about here tonight a little bit. And let's kind of tie this topic in with the SEC thing coming to an end, finally, hopefully forever, in 5 days here, when we figure out if they are going to amend their complaint and move this deflated football forward. And, you know, if they do, whether Judge Carroll would just, you know, God smack it down, which I think she would do. But, you know, the SEC has been giving instruction basically from the top to stop pursuing cases like this. So we may just see that they do nothing on the 21st. Case closed. Richard won on all counts, going away. So yeah, then we're good to go. But with that deadline coming up, we see this Ethereum moving around. What could it be for? Because, you know, there's been speculation about, you know, he just tweeted about the wallet. And then we also have some people just had the bland explanation of like, I think Corey Geary was talking about like maybe this is just attorney fees, you know, you want to put it under the umbrella of your company or whatever. Yeah. So, you know, but yeah, I'm curious what you think. We're not wallet watchers. I think it gets kind of gross a little bit to constantly be doing that, but people tried to front run that move the other day. I think that's why we partially saw Pulse pump up. But what is encouraging, no matter what, I think a positive you can say is that money's moving around. And we've already seen that money be injected into the ecosystem about a year ago. So what do you make of these moves?
Couple things. First, we know that somebody has access to it, so sacrifice funds are safe. No big deal. People are still saying, "Oh, Richard's on the run. This, that, no access." Someone's got access to it. Could be for developers. Could be developers. It could be for these updates that we were talking about. It could be for the wallet that we were talking about. Yes, I mean there's a ton of things, and we're not going to know because it did go through Tornado Cash, and we'll never know where they got sent unless somebody gets lucky and finds an address. But so many options. I don't believe. Well, there's another option, right? It could be just moving. Let's just move it. We're not going to do anything with it. We're going to move it. And we're going to put it in place, and nobody's going to know where it's at and when it gets chosen to deploy. So, when large amounts of money start moving, there's all kind of speculations. There will always be speculation, and there will always be the front runners that try and get ahead of making the right play at the right time. But big chunks of money moving, it's really just it's all a guess for anybody.
Right.
I would like to see that we get the developers fired back up again. We haven't had any of these updates happen in a while. Maybe the developers were said, "Hey, take a few months. We're good for now. No critical updates are really needed. But once this case is over, we're going to fire things back up, and we're going to get moving." So maybe that was a developer's fee or something like that, where they're going to get them going back at it again and get some updates to happen. I mean, we said it needs to happen. So just a speculation. Again, no idea. Doesn't really concern me one way or another. And the case being over, I'm assuming he had quite the retainer that he had paid ahead of time.
Right.
I'm sure it was tens of millions of dollars to get these guys that kind of team. Now, what do we think is going to happen? Right. I think they delay again up until the final deadline, and then come back with we're not going to push back on anything. We don't really have anything to go on, which we knew the whole time. Their defense was shot anyway by the judge. But I think they probably try and throw a clause in there where Richard can't come after them.
Yeah.
I really think they'll.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's already been verbiage from them before. I forget exactly what it was, but it was like, as long as there is a fair understanding. I forget what it was, but they were covering themselves in their last little exchange, I believe. Yep.
Now, why would he? Right? I mean, why would he not come after them after the? Do you want to just move on? Do you want to set precedent? Do you want to make a point? I mean, knowing Richard's a pretty cocky guy. And when he's right and he knows he's right, he likes to prove a point. A countersuit, I think it's a lot of wasted money, a lot of time, a lot more things that he now would just have to be more careful of. Again, and I think maybe once that side of it goes away, maybe the other side, the red notice, kind of gets taken care of at the same time. I think one kind of follows the other one in my eyes. So I think he probably just wants it to be over with. But I think it would be an awesome exclamation point to go after them and countersue for something, damages of some sort, reputation, slander, libel, whatever it may be.
It's a nice little fantasy, but those are resources that I would rather not be waste, and especially with this administration now and stuff like that. I think at this point, we're really just dealing with lawyers. I don't think it's so much the SEC now, because again, the directive from up top has been stop pursuing cases like this.
Yeah,
so
true.
And Paul Atkins has now been confirmed, so he's actually in there now. So
did you see this?
I just put that up there. Yeah.
Could have been a tax bill. Never know.
Yeah. Never know. Although with him, that seems maybe a low tax bill. I'm not sure what his tax bills would look like.
$6 million.
It is Richard Hart, though. I'm sure he knows ways to have pretty low tax bills. So, Yeah, well, this is all fun stuff. It's good to see. Again, like you said, the good sign is that we know the funds are safe. They're moving around. They are able to be accessed and all that good stuff. So definitely good indeed. We'll find out in 5 days what the SEC's shtick is here. Even though I think most of us are pretty much over it at this point, and we're about to move on from all that. Thank God. So,
Yep.
let's wrap up with whatever has happened with PDI over last night. You can talk about whatever parts of it, if any, that you want to, Ewok. There's been a lot of questions about it in the chat. Marco, well, he specifically was talking about Sami's PDI narrative. Maybe that wasn't the best comment to go off of for it. But like in terms of whatever did happen, because there has been like a pretty interesting shift, and who knows what's actually going to come of all this. And that's the big thing. Like, I think that's where maybe you and I have differed with this topic, Ewok, is I'm trying to, you can describe what I'm doing as like fence sitting or whatever, I don't know, but I am just open to whatever happens here. I mean, I don't think there's any I think I would rather just, first off, I'm not obviously the smartest guy about all this, and I would rather not take one side or the other as if I know anything to be true. And really, that's the way that I've placed my bets with it the entire time as well. Like anything that I had ever allocated into PDI, whether it be back in 2023 or anytime recently or anything like that, has always been like a super insignificant, portion of anything that I've had invested in the ecosystem. And there's been a huge roller coaster with all this. You have, B Roots and Ian like selling the lows of it, supposedly, they say, and then creating a new teddy bear and all kinds of stuff like that. Then you have Sami, who's like the new, I was gonna call him the new B Roots. I don't think I should probably call him that, but the new main PDI guy at the moment. And the overwhelming majority of people are completely against this, think it's a scam. You have Panos and those guys benefiting, like doing streams completely based around PDI 24/7 around the clock, even though they think it's a scam. There's just a lot of interesting things happen. But overnight last night, it was basically that this I forget her name, the Katrina woman or whatever she is. I don't know who all these people are. It's just characters on the blockchain, but basically that she somehow was given or has PMaker tokens, and like you brought up with me this morning, executed the ESM function on PMaker. So essentially, I don't know if that means that it is paused or dead, but basically that the PMaker is not usable now on PulseChain. And if this thing is going to happen and whatever is happening with PDI, it is the Atropa ecosystem now. It's whatever is going on with that. Billions of PDI were minted last night, which is why it like went down 99% instantly and then came back up to where it's at right now over the course of the day. But that was then used to pump up Atropa, Teddy Bear pumped, all these things pumped, PWBTC, the copy of Bitcoin on PulseChain. And it's speculated now that Atropa will be the vehicle to do whatever this stuff is. One thing that I think was great that St. Wolf said earlier that I think we should make abundantly clear, anybody that talks about PDI should make abundantly clear, whether you support the idea or not, is that Richard Hart is not affiliated with it. It's good that Richard Hart has nothing to do with it. We have seen what happened to people that are behind, different stablecoin efforts in the past. And I'm glad that it is a community thing that is happening behind the scenes and does not have to do with Richard Hart. I think that is definitely a great thing, and people should stop. We've probably been guilty of it in the past, like speculating that he was behind it. I would think it's good that that is not something that is mentioned for everybody's safety. And he's adamantly, advertised against it, as we've seen. So, what do you make? I am curious, though, what you make of this latest thing. Not, you can say whatever you want in terms of what do you think will happen with it eventually. But it is interesting, like that, the route that everyone had been speculating about this in one direction or the other was all about PMaker. The essay that like Alex wrote about it, McWhorter and stuff like that. It was all about what can and can't happen with PMaker. But that's now out of the equation, it seems. So, yeah, I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, once the emergency stop mechanism was triggered, it pretty much disallows the minting of any more PDI. So that hopefully is done and over with. That whole question, that whole narrative, whatever it was, is over and done with. The auctions or the joy or whatever it was that was supposed to trigger all this stuff, I believe that also comes to a stop. So now you're going to say, well, all right, well, we're going to use Atropa to try and peg it with this. Here, I still stand in a very similar spot, because when you have billions of tokens out there, which I don't know the total supply of Atropa, I'm assuming it's billions. Maria, probably, if you want to look while I'm talking, but the problem is now you have to over collateralize Atropa. If you're gonna do any kind of pegging or make a P maker system out of Atropa instead of maker, basically it's, you have to kind of create a contract that does the same thing. You have to over collateralize it, which means everybody that has Atropa sitting in their wallet, if you've got 1 billion of them in your wallet, guess what? You've got to collateralize those. People can't collateralize for other people. And the problem is greed. You've got so many people, and this is why I kind of saw this coming with the PDI too, is that people are going to speculate on cheap prices, get millions and millions of them, and hope it goes up. But what happens then? It triggers a waterfall of sells. I don't think people are going to say, well, I hold, $10,000 worth of Atropa, I'm going to collateralize my own. Well, there goes your speculation, because now you're putting up something that could be, closed upon if you do a loan and it gets liquidated. So that's the problem. And Maria has kind of shown to be a little flighty. Maybe that's why. Well, I mean, he sat there on a live stream and just started dumping stuff. So there's too many. There's very, very weird things, and the narratives just keep changing and shifting, and goalposts keep getting moved. And I am glad, however, that they're saying, okay, well, now it's Atropa. Richard's got nothing to do with it. Well, I mean, for those who believed what he was saying, is this is not me, guys. I have nothing to do with it. Hopefully that whole thing kind of goes away now and puts that to rest. I just don't see. Listen, if you're gonna create a stable coin, I'm gonna share this actually, because this was on Richard's long time ago roadmap. See if I can bring this up. Why is it not sharing? Oh, I know why. Because I'm an idiot. Here is some time ago. There was it's not letting me blow it up very well. But anyway, PulseChain mainnet MVP, which is the most valuable products that they needed. Testnet, Go.hex, Bridges, Uniswap, Block Explorer. Post release would be trading, the swap features. You got coin ranking site, replace MetaMask. So here's the wallet replacement. You've got Uniswap, but a cross chain. So he wanted to do cross chain swaps for that. And down here, it's underlined stable coin from my exchange I'm making. Point being, is anybody that is going to create a stable coin, you have to do it from inception. You can't give people millions and millions of tokens and then expect them to peg and hold with any kind of protocol. Again, the greed thing just steps in and takes way over, from trying to bring something from 0.000001 all the way up to $1. It just, there's too much greed in the world. If there weren't greed, Hex would still be at 40 cents and people would have only peeled off the yield and sold that. I mean, that's just, frankly, that's how the world works. So again, trying to get something to believe in something that's going to peg when people hold millions and millions of them, and you're not going to get individuals to over collateralize their own, there's no point in it. Then it's not speculating anymore. I still think is a lost proposition. That's just That's how I feel. I just don't. I hate to listen. If PDI would have worked, you still would have only had so much liquidity. Yes, it could have pumped the ecosystem, but such thin liquidity supporting it and holding it up, it almost would have become a house of cards. And unfortunately, to create a stable coin, I think you really have to start from zero block, over collateralize that with your things in place where the auctions take place. If you over mint it auctions, if you under mint, people can buy it up cheaper and support the price. So anyway, that's my token. That's my thoughts on the elephant in the room. And and I know you've been, like you said, you've been very middle of the road about the whole thing too. You're like, great if it does. If it doesn't, no big deal. I'm not over invested. My fear is just that people are going all in on this and saying, wow, it's a great idea. And you got people like 9 Iron Capital and Decentralize Me and all these guys. There's just so many crazy that sound almost too good to be true possibilities where people are just going in with very large sums of money. And my fear is nothing's going to happen and they're going to get wrecked and it's going to be a bad experience. But again, it's not my job to protect people. I just like to bring up what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that gets wrecked on it is entirely, it's their own fault. I mean, just like anything else, like I said, like any amount, and same with you, any amount that you had ever had, and it was totally an amount that it's like, if you lost it, okay. I mean, and I still totally feel that way. Really, the significance to me, I think there's this thing that people that are vehemently against it and think that people are just talking because they're bag holders miss, is that they're not just excited about it and wanting it to happen because they hold a big PDI bag, which they actually may or may not. It's also because there's been a narrative that a lot more people used to believe in just a few months ago that now totally don't, that it could send this ecosystem to like way higher places than they ever thought possible. And there's people that still like that idea, obviously, and would like to think that that's still out there and can just sit here harmlessly hoping and thinking that without even buying much of the token, which I find no issues with. And, if that were to happen, that does benefit all of us. I mean, if something like that were to happen, there's a whole bunch of benefits that everybody that invests in the whole ecosystem could garner. And so I do think that's true. I mean, I think KG even kind of said it on that stream earlier. I think most people be like, yeah, that'd be cool if it were able to happen, but they just maybe don't see the pathway to it happening, which is okay. I mean, there's many times in life and in crypto or ventures like this that you could not see a pathway of something happening, and then something happens that you had no insight or intel into whatsoever, that came along. I mean, none of us thought that all of a sudden PMaker was going to be out of the equation. So, and I understand that might just create even more doubt for people now, but just an example, that's something that was out of left field that wasn't even conceivable like a day ago. So
yeah. Well, and an interesting thing about that whole ESM, what if some of that money that was moved by the sacrifice address went in to buy Maker to shut it down? What nobody really knows who did it. Exactly. I don't think.
Nobody knows who sent the PMaker to whatever her name is, Katarina or whatever.
Whatever the name is, I don't know, but there's a possibility, and maybe it wasn't even, they don't even know who it is. There's just so many questions, and unfortunately, again, you have to over collateralize stuff, and what's the point in speculating on something if you have to do that? I just don't think it holds up well. But anyway,
speculation is spice of life here.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's why we're here, right? We are speculating on things, but I think anyway, I don't know. I don't know where I was going to go with that, but
one thing I did do today that I thought was interesting is if for anybody, this is just, copy me if you want to, I only did it with some of it, but with those moves from last night, if you ever did want to have any kind of a PDI position, but you're afraid to use like new capital because of the risks and stuff right now, which I totally understand. I mean, I honestly haven't even been DCing into any of it. if you had already ever held Atropa just as a lottery ticket size and or the PWBTC, those ratios went insane since yesterday. So if you wanted to increase your bag of PDI without putting your hard-earned money in there because you're worried about it, if you already happen to hold those tokens, now the ratio is actually incredibly advantageous that you could dump Atropa and or PWBTC part of it if you want to. I would look at the charts. I'm just saying something that I saw and that I did, and put it into PDI if you wanted to do that. So it's up to you. I mean, it's just slushing money around at the end of the day, and it's just ratios. It's not new money, but that's just for anybody that believes and cares. I'm not telling anybody to do it that thinks, that PDI is a cancer killing the chain. You can do whatever the hell you want to do, but I'm just letting people know that that's all. So
yeah, interestingly enough, Atropa is one of the tokens I don't believe I've ever held any of. I don't never picked any up. So I always thought Maria was just a little too far out there, and I didn't know what crazy concocted thing was going on with all the webs of liquidity, and it was too overwhelming almost. And I was just like, nah, I'm staying away from that.
You had Teddy Bear though, didn't you? Didn't you have Teddy Bear?
I do have some Teddy. Yeah.
Okay.
Not much.
Some Teddy. Do you have Bear or do you have Teddy? Because Teddy's the new one that B Roots is pretending is Teddy Bear. That isn't.
The old one. The old Bear.
Okay.
I did buy some Bear.
Well, you're up right now if you want to get out of it.
Maybe I will.
Knowing you probably want to get out of it. So FYI.
Switch it into Hex.
Diamond hands it. I don't know. Swap it into PDI, whatever you want to do.
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Anyway, it is fascinating. I mean, it's a fascinating story. I mean, even the people that, hate it and everything are talking about it every single day and stuff like that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's just one of those things that you don't have to be. That's a cool thing I've said to you so many times. You don't have to be really involved in it one way or the other. I mean, in some ways we all are to an extent because you're in PulseChain, but you don't have to buy PDI. You don't have to be involved with that ecosystem. It's just, I'm fascinated by whatever the weird story is and just watching it happen. That's all. So
for sure.
Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps us up. Did you have any kind of final thoughts or anything tonight, Ewok?
I did have one thing I wanted to bring up. For those who want to support the channel or whatever, creedofcrypto.com. We do have some t-shirts and things like that. I did put a 15% coupon up for the next 2 weeks. If you're interested in any of them, there's just some designs that we've had. I threw a couple other ones on there too, just to give something new and bear run or bull run ready. And I figured
maybe it should be bear run ready.
It's been a bear run, but yeah. So there's some new designs on there, and if you think of a design or something that you want to see, or other than PDI, give us send me a direct message on Twitter. We'll see if we can't get them added for you. But yeah, for 2 weeks there's a 15% off code on there. So
there you go, creedofcrypto.com. If you want to, did you see Urban Productions?
I did.
Yeah. Yep. That's why I haven't bought any of them. So I hear you, Urban Productions. But if you are the t-shirt type, we know DJ Moonboy has gotten one and supported it in the past. Yeah. Look very sleek. You got to get those tri-blends. They fit the body. If you got a nice body, really, even if you don't, actually, tri-blends fit bodies well. So yeah, grab that tri-blend. Yeah, a lot of good stuff on there. So Bear Run Maxi for sure. Okay, well, hey, we do appreciate all of you guys being here. DJ Moonboy, Urban Productions, Marco, Don Crypt, Digital Money, Marcus, Kurt Thompson, Bit Finesse. We had Johnny Chaos in here a bit earlier. We had Crypto 7 I saw made an appearance. Valiant Low Key. Checks My Pulse, of course, as always. Yellowtail, and a whole bunch more. We appreciate all of you guys. We do this every week, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be here next week. Enjoy your Easter Sundays. If you haven't ever seen the South Park Easter special episode, it is in my probably top 5 South Park episodes ever. Is it a 2-parter? No, I think it's just one, but it is absolutely phenomenal. Highly recommend. Go watch it. There's a new season of South Park actually coming this year, which is freaking awesome too. So, yeah, hippitus hopitus, everybody. And yeah, we'll see you next week. So for Crypto Ewok, this has been Broke Boy Crypto right here on the Creed of Crypto.
See ya.